Lesson 10, Functions, Practice. At the conclusion of this lesson, you will be able to write programs that use functions with the support of some sample code, debug programs that use functions, identify opportunities to use functions to reduce repeated code within a program. Now, today, or at least in this lesson, we're going to have a chance to practice programming with a lot of the concepts and patterns we've explored over the last 2 lessons. I encourage you to go through these with a partner or in a group. In the virtual classroom, I'll divide people up into some breakout rooms, so there's 4 or 5 of you. You can bounce ideas off of each other. If we're live in class, I would be giving each of you partners, and then you would also have another set of partners that would be your other buddies. But here, if you're doing this all alone because you missed class, you want to pay close attention to what you're doing. And if you've got somebody who can work it through with you, that would be great, but don't let them just do it. Pay attention to what's going on. In the next lesson, in the make, you will have to use a lot of these on an independent project. And these activities are good practice for what you'll find there. Now, let's get to it. Today, you're mostly going to practice what we've learned about programming with functions. I first want to remind you of the following. Use your debugging skills. Try to zoom in on precisely where you're getting stuck. What's wrong? What's not working? Talk to your partner or members of your breakout room or group. That's what they're there for. Hover. Use your mouse to hover over blocks to read the documentation about how they work. Also, read the resources in the Help and Tips tab. Now, you're first going to be working on levels 2 through 6. In these levels, you will practice declaring and calling functions. At first, you will practice just calling functions that have already been declared for you. You can focus your energy, not their energy, I don't know where I got that one from, your energy on the syntax of calling a function and how using functions changes the order in which the lines of code run. Later in the progression, you'll practice finding repeated code and you will be guided through how to create a function in its place. So for right now, you want to make sure that you go to Unit 4, Lesson 10, navigate to Level 2 on Code Studio, and proceed levels 2 through 6. I'm going to, and again, if we're in virtual, I would be sending you breakout rooms, and I would call you back in 15 minutes. Now, pause the video and give yourself about 15 minutes to do levels 2 through 6. Okay, now here we'll be watching this debugging variable scope. It's a video. I have found that I can't put videos inside of videos when I do these recordings. So at this point, you want to pause the video. On Canvas, I have a link directly to this video. This video is also available to you. I think it's level 7. I'm going to say it's level 7 in Unit 4, Lesson 10. So there's a couple different ways that you can get to this, but pause this video and go watch Debugging Variable Scope. Okay, now here's one of the things that you need to know. As you get better, you will be declaring variables both inside and outside. You will declare global variables and local variables. Right now, we want to avoid confusion, so we're only going to use global variables. You're going to create variables once at the top, at the very beginning of your program, okay? Outside functions or unevents. When you create variables, you should use var only once. You don't need to create variables twice, and this can actually cause some pretty serious errors. Create your variables at the top of your program. This keeps your code organized and is easier for you and others to read. You know what variables you've got, you know where to look for them. Create your variables outside of any function or on event blocks. Don't put anything on the inside. Now, why? We have global and variable, global and local. There are 2 types of variables, global and local, and so far we've only used global variables. Here's the main difference between global and local variables. Global are permanent. They can be used anywhere in your code. They exist from the time they're declared until the end of your program. The var is used outside an on-event, outside any function. Local are temporary. They can be used only in the part of the code where it was created, like inside an on event. and it's deleted once the on event is done running. Every time the on event runs, a new one gets created, and then it's deleted when the on event stops. The var is used inside on event. Local variables will eventually be useful, but for now, they're most likely to be confusing. The biggest issue you'll run into, you will run into right now with local variables is accidentally using var inside an on event or function. Here's what that code usually looks like. On event button 1, click, function, var count is set to count +1. This code is pretty confusing. While it looks like there's only one variable being used, it actually has two variables, one local and one global, and they're both named count. Right up here, you had a global one. Changing the value on one will have no impact on the other. This can cause unexpected behavior in your code, and it can get tricky to debug. The best way to avoid these issues is to make sure for now that you're not using var inside an on event or function. If you run into a tricky debugging problem, check first if you're accidentally creating a local variable. If you do this, this is creating a brand new count. Think of this as a dad, as senior. This is junior. Junior's getting older. Doesn't affect dad. Dad didn't change. Okay? Or here's dad, here's son. Junior's getting another $1. Dad's not. Okay? These are two different counts. Levels 7 and 8 will be function scope. These two levels return to a topic that was covered in the variables lesson as well. Variable scope. While you do not need, I hate using students, while you do not need a deep understanding of the scope at this point, you will, in some instances, encounter debugging challenges that arise because of it. Okay? Now, when you get down here to level 9 and 10, you'll be creating functions. In these levels, you will revisit the movie ticket app and are challenged to think through the process of declaring a function with code that you anticipate could be repeated. Level 9 is a map level about when you should decide to create functions. So level 9 is basically reading. From level 7 through 10, give yourself about 20 minutes. Notice that's about 5 minutes per level. Remember, it's not always that you get 100% through every level, but that you've got a good idea of what to do and how to do it. Now, it should take about 20 minutes. Again, if we're in class, I'd put you in your breakout rooms. If you're doing it on your own, give yourself 20 to 30 minutes to get it done. When you have that completed, go ahead and go to the worksheet in Canvas called AP CSP U4 L10 homework and complete that practice. And then that's it for this lesson.